Hey everyone. All right. I see we have the participants and registrants increasing. I'm going to get started. Welcome. I'm Justina, and I'm thrilled to have you here for today's session to learn how to maximize Studio Designer by deep diving into new insights and tools. Today we have Keith Granet, the CEO of Studio Designer, and Julia Nikishina, the founder of New Age Financial Consulting. They'll be providing valuable insights and also answering your questions throughout the session. So we'll want to hear from you. To do so, simply click on the Q&A button on the bottom of your Zoom screen to submit your questions during the webinar. And as a reminder, this is the last of our pre-show webinar series. So if you want to learn even more from Keith and Julia, make sure to register for the Studio Designer Users Conference in Miami. I'll be dropping the registration link in the chat so you can secure your spot. Now let's dive in. Julia and Keith, take it away.
Thank you very much. It looks like people are still rolling in, Julia. I think we should maybe give it a few more minute at least. Yeah.
I'll share my screen. How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing great. You ready for the holidays?
Trying to be, leaving Friday. So
Yeah.
heading your way.
I know. Let me know when you're in.
I will for sure.
It's very gloomy here, so you're not missing out in New York.
It's nice and sunny here. Maybe I should stay.
I mean, that's tempting. Few minutes, 2:30, right? Yes.
Yeah, let's give them like 2 more minutes.
I am not ready. I'm not done shopping. I'm done nothing.
Oh, wow. You got 7 days.
It's funny. That was my exact thought this morning. I was like, oh, how many days? I'm like, oh, well, actually less than, right? 6, really.
So you know what I did last weekend because I needed to go to the mall. I refused to go drive there because it was so awful, is I took my first Waymo. You know, the driverless cars.
Oh, yes. How was it?
It's crazy. I mean, it felt very safe, but it's just to sit in a car and there's nobody driving it. And it went around my neighborhood until it found 4-way stops, which I think it probably does for safety reasons. And then the only problem was the mall was so backed up that the cars trying to get in were blocking the road and it couldn't move. And so I was stuck in the car for like 15 minutes waiting for the traffic to die down.
Oh, and then it finally had enough space to go.
And then it had found enough space and I
Yeah,
could step out. But $10, I mean, it's like cheaper than Waze because there's no driver to pay for. But it's a little freaky, I have to say.
Yeah. I think that would be, they were all over San Francisco the last time I was there. And I was like, oh, I don't know. I think it'd be very unnerving until you're used to it. And then I think it'd be probably fantastic.
Yeah, I think so. Well, it looks like we should get started.
Yes. So hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us as always. So this is our last insight. We're calling it also like a deep dive into Studio, our last webinar, and specifically focused around the user conference and all of the content that we're so excited to learn about. As Justina mentioned, there is a Q&A box, and it is located wherever you have your Zoom toolbar. So that could be at the top, at the bottom, or the side. So click on the Q&A box. Those questions do come through live. So if we have something that we could answer for you, we'll certainly do that. So Keith and myself, so we're going to be going through a little bit of the user conference coming up in February. And then really, I think just information about Studio and how far we've come as a software and as a team.
And that we're always continuing to grow. And that's why we're bringing the user conference out after the first 30 years, was really that the power of community. And we're going to talk about that as well, but really how to learn from others as well as from us. Yeah. And so we're super excited about this conference. And by the way, if anybody hasn't registered, there are like 50 slots left, and we have 15,000 users, so we think they're going to fill up pretty quick. So if you haven't, go to the in the chat box, you'll see the link to register. And I would do it quickly if you could.
Yes. So someone actually asked a really great question already. Are there super excited about a conference, which we both are as well? And are there plans for a West Coast one? Pretty please.
We will probably do this every year now, and we'll probably swap back and forth from each. Yeah, but right now this is the only one it's a pretty big deal. So we're hoping you'll make it.
With the thought too that Florida is central, right? So there's always things that are happening on one side of the coast or the other. But I do agree. It absolutely it should be ongoing. We're such a big team nowadays, and so many new tools and insights coming. I would say releases happening all the time. So that's a little bit about what we're going to talk about today. So is our new insights and tools, and we're actually going to start it right off with design tools.
So I'm just going to jump in, Julia, and tell you why design tools came about. And we had been hearing for a long time that, studio is wonderful when it comes to once you have an item and you've selected it, getting it into the system and then managing the process. But we really wanted to get you from conception to installation, and the ability for us to help you with tools that would allow you to create a mood board or other tools that really enhance that first experience when you're looking to inspire your clients. And so diving into design tools to allow you to really see what that early phase looks like. And then it'll be useful data in the future, because you'll be able to see what your clients have loved from your inspiration versus what they actually purchased. And does that drive any of that data drive you to perform differently? So Julia, do you want to sort of dig into design tools a little bit?
Yes, and I'll be honest to say I haven't I've been diving into it more and more as this year has gone on. So even though it was released earlier, we really haven't been urging clients up until recently, really I would say like Q4, to make it such an integral part of their process. And so as I'm sure all of us on the call today know, that Pinterest is probably still a starting point for many of our design firms. And then from Pinterest, firms go in many different directions as to how they do their presentations. And what we've found by being able to incorporate design tools, even if you're still pinning, which is that now considered a verb, I guess. So we're pinning images. Mm-hmm. If a principal it likes using Pinterest and likes pinning, the rest of the design team can then at least go to a Pinterest board and take all of that information and make it really usable in design tools directly into Studio. So remember, the design tool inspirations, not only can you use your widget, right? So that shortcut to create every inspiration, you have your URL, so you could very quickly and easily go back to the original, the website. Pricing could live in there, and then you could have an unlimited amount of tags per inspiration. So you could go to the cravat fabric and look to see, did you tag it for the color? Did you tag it for the living room wing chairs? Did you tag it for a specific project? Like, what was the thought process behind that? And I know reports are coming for design tools, so then you'll be able to even have more actionable data. And Anthony from Studio yesterday actually showed me that in the direct integration with Microsoft PowerPoint. So everybody's presentation is the presentation tools, I would say, can be different, but that native integration that was developed for Microsoft PowerPoint, I'm telling you, I just saw it yesterday. I thought it was amazing. I don't know what I was expecting, but I wasn't expecting what it actually looked like. And so for this particular firm that we did the presentation for, he was so gracious to show it to me. They're thinking about switching from their current presentation software and moving everything over to PowerPoint, because that integration was so valuable for them. So I think, again, if it's not part of your process, and it's okay if you don't, right? It always goes back to, it's okay if you don't know, but if you don't know, there's lots of pre-recorded webinars on the Learning Hub that if you go in and just type in design tools to understand how you could integrate that in your actual process today. And even though the native integration is with Microsoft PowerPoint, the copy and paste tool with Canva as well, because we looked at that yesterday, is still making this process, right, so much easier, because after then the presentation goes out via Canva, you then have to go in and recreate all the items in Studio. But now you're skipping that step. All of those items already live there as inspirations. You're converting them to an item, so you're saving time, and you're able to see the history to know, oh, I remember, right, Mr. and Mrs. Smith approved that cravat fabric, and you'll always have that history. And so the more you invest in terms of inspirations into design tools, really the better off, right? The better off they'll be.
Well, Julie, I want to also add that, we all sort of learn the software, whether it's PowerPoint or Excel or anything, to where we're very comfortable with it. And then we're like, okay, we know it well enough, right? But at Studio, we're constantly listening to you and what tools we can provide to make the process easier for you. And with that, we were constantly developing. So it's really important to go to our learning center, to really pay attention to these new features, because they are meant to make your life easier and to make the whole system more efficient. So we encourage you really to learn this, even though you may feel like you know Studio very well.
I always pose the question too, to whether it's like an existing client, but especially to the new clients or potential users, is how can you incorporate all of Studio into your process? And that could be a very large question, right? Depending on the size of the firm and the workflow. But what is that, literally, what does that look like from step one or step A to Z? And is Studio the central hub for so many pieces of the information? And actually, I think if you then answer that question, the design presentation is really where it starts.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So Studio Pay 2.0, I don't know how many of us actually know that the original Studio Pay, which has also been amazing, is getting an upgrade, has gotten an upgrade. Everyone should have received emails in their inbox throughout the last couple months in terms of deciding whether they will be upgrading and what that means. But for those of you who, if you're still logging into a separate website for Studio Pay, that means you're in the original version. And so if you don't have an email, or if you don't recall seeing an email, I think reaching out to support is always a great resource to say, oh, I think I'd like to join 2.0. What does that look like? And your dashboard. So then instead of having two logins, one for Studio and another one for Studio Pay, your whole dashboard will live directly in the Studio designer screen.
Yeah, I mean, Studio Pay, again, came about because many of you have witnessed or experienced wire fraud. And just, well, one, certainly through the last couple of years, more clients want to pay directly through a system like that versus writing checks or other methodologies that we know have become risky. And so this really is the safest way to transfer dollars.
And the payment link, right? So that was I think, I don't know how many years that was a question where if people were transitioning from QuickBooks, right? And now so many users migrate over because they have the ability to send payment links on proposals and on invoices. You could also, a question we get often is credit cards versus ACH. So you can control that. And if you know you have a client that is maybe particularly challenging and you only want them to pay via ACH, you can set that up ahead of time before the client even receives their secure payment link. I think wire, and I think this is one of our next slides. So wire fraud, in terms of what I do for a living, is so prevalent, unfortunately. So we're now doing, and we've been doing this now for a couple of years, but we do verbal wire verifications. That's a must for every transaction. that is processed unless a principal is signing a piece of paper written, you know, by our attorney that allows us to process outside of that, because it's crazy.
Well, I mean, and every day you're hearing more and more horror stories about people who wired to the wrong, or their emails got hacked and then they sent different wiring instructions and people accepted it. So you're right, by having that second call or the confirmation, it definitely, you know, can eliminate that, but you got to be careful these days.
I actually think it's gonna get worse, right? I think it's gonna get worse before it gets better. Actually, Tyler from Studio had given me a horror story in terms of, like even seeing, let's just say, people obviously setting up fake companies and facilitating and asking for money and asking for payments and then closing companies down. And I mean, you can't, I think that the world that we live in, that's not gonna go away. It's only going to get worse, like we've seen, right? Since post-COVID, I actually think it's gotten worse. So that payment link is secure. The client can, if the client also, just as a reminder, if the client sets up their information on there, and they could even remember their payment information, which is great. Somebody was asking about lumped transactions and batches. So when you're a merchant processor, right? So whether it's us as a merchant processor or American Express, as we're taking money, right? We do batch deposit. So you can't see that in Studio Pay currently, to go in and see, okay, well, Mr. and Mrs. Smith paid with Mr. and Mrs. Jones, and here's their total deposit, and here's what they paid. So I do think, just to keep in mind, in terms of the user conference and in terms of Studio, I think the reporting is amazing. I think we could continue to increase our reports, just like we talked about, making sure that there's reports coming out of design tools to continue reporting on Studio Pay as well. So I think that is on the radar, that is on the agenda.
Definitely.
I love the payment link. We get asked the question a lot, and I'd be curious to hear your thoughts, just really about Studio tips and tricks, and how do you learn them, right? How do you pick up all that there is to know?
Well, you know, it just goes back to who you communicate with, right? So and that's one of the beauties of this conference, is really the ability for you to talk to other people who have found sort of either workarounds or ways that really make it more efficient to use. So we're going to be sort of exposing you to quite a few of those things with tips and tricks. And we'll talk about that in a minute.
Yeah, so I'm sure everyone's noticed, right? There's been an item refresh. So that item screen, I know even for myself, and we've had some sneak peeks on the item screen, but it's retraining your brain.
Mm-hmm.
We tell clients all the time, and even for myself, right? I've been in this software now almost 20 years. I mean, I'm still learning, and I mean that. And I'm constantly asking questions, and I'm constantly reaching out to others that I know to say, oh, I know that you're really good at reports, or I know you're really good at this or at that. I can't find this particular field. I couldn't find a dollar value to add to a custom something the other day. I couldn't, I don't know where it went. So, and I would say I'm a user in the software all the time. So the amount of knowledge to absorb is huge. And so getting a really big deep dive, I think, will help, whether it be a beginner user or a more advanced user. With the new item screen, priority colors, that's like one of those, we heard you, right? So how many designers have been asking for more colors?
Actually, Julia, there's a question in the Q&A that says, can you rename the priority colors?
You can, yeah, you absolutely can. So if you go to settings in the left-hand corner and scroll middle of the way, and they're called, I want to say they're called priorities. And so if you click on priorities, all of your colors will pop up, both the old 10 and then now the new 10, and that's where you name them. And then once you name them, that name will populate in the new item screen on the left-hand side of the item. It now looks, it's no longer a circle. It is very much a rectangle and it's very long. Oh, actually, another sort of just studio question while we're in the item screen. So where is the vendor order number in the item? So you have a vendor invoice number. So once you click a purchase order, you have to create a purchase order first. It'll then give you an option to enter the vendor invoice, or I would say like the vendor purchase order. And you can actually search by that field too. So these questions like that will be, I think, answered and also discussed, workflow discussed. And if you know that you need to talk or expand more on your accounting knowledge, or if you know you need to work on expediting reports, or if you know you need a crash course into design tools, just 3 days of exposure is going to be the place to get it. So in terms of expanded priority colors, so great question. Yes, you can rename them. Yes, under settings. There's a new item screen. I think it came out Thursday. Looks different. I think it looks great. It's going to take some getting used to. It's going to take probably going to your knowledge base a bit. And the pop-ups have been really good to help people find buttons that they're really used to. I know we talk a lot about custom reports. So there's a session, an entire session with going off memory, I want to say Robert, who's a long time studio user. He'll be in Miami. He'll be available to answer any questions that you may have and give you the knowledge to operate the custom report screen. Do you want to move on to Studio Capture?
Sure.
So Studio Capture 2, I would say that widget, if the term Studio Capture is I would say obscure, you're not familiar with, it's located on your homepage, absolutely install it and begin to play around and use it. Studio Capture is a really great way to grab any item, but to grab any spec off of a website. So it does need a website presence, convert it into your item screen, or convert it into inspirations in the design tool section. So again, if that isn't part of your workflow, I always just tell people it needs to be. And it's okay if you are different firms, for example, could use different parts of Studio Capture, right? Like the way they enter information, but it just makes it easier. It's efficient. And our goal is always to be efficient.
Yeah, I mean, I think we were the first to put that in the marketplace when we put that out there, and people love it. I mean, it corrects all the human errors, right? That you have to transfer numbers and it all automatically populates both images and data. It's really a brilliant tool. If you're not using it, you really should learn how to use it.
Yeah. Somebody mentioned that you need a lot of knowledge to operate Studio. I mean, I don't disagree with that. I mean, I think you do. I think it's a software literally that has always been growing and expanding, right? Keith and I were reminiscing the other day that we've now known each other 10 years and the landscape has changed, right? It's different, but the world is different. So this particular user actually is comparing it to Apple, which I actually think is that's a great compliment. The Apple, every time that Apple iPhone gets in, I have an update currently that I'm not accepting.
Okay.
But it's the same. I actually think it's great. It's one of those learning opportunities. And the more you participate in the webinars, the more you go to events such as the user conference and you connect with peers, which I actually think we're gonna talk about, but how they're utilized, how do you incorporate Studio into your business? That is a question. I actually think everyone should answer that question for themselves. We talk a little bit about the genius part.
The mean of your business, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Always. I'm telling you, a lot of our new inquiries, I ask that and I really try to pose it. So like I'll ask that, but depending on their answer, then to reframe it a little bit. To say, okay, but have we thought about it this way? Or what design tools are new? Have you looked at that? and again, if you haven't, that's okay, but then we need to understand where that starts, so that we can, right, where that starts in your design process, so we can incorporate it for you. Yeah. Genius
Well,
bar?
yeah, so the Genius Bar is, obviously a take on Apple, but it's our ability to bring to you support, people who you can just come up and say, look, I've been struggling with this question. Hopefully our support team answers all of that pretty quickly for you, but there may be stuff that you want to work through, and there'll be somebody there throughout the entire conference, a couple of people who you can just go up to and just talk about what it is that you're either struggling with or you want help with, or if you have a new idea, they want to listen. So there is the ability to sign up for the Genius Bar and just get your questions answered on a one-on-one basis.
We tell a lot of our clients too to email, like if they like colors, right? Colors came about because that was a constant request. So if you have a request and you see that you're looking for a very specific change, support tracks that. They absolutely, they track it to understand what the global design community is looking for, and that's how these new features come. That's how these new features come about.
Well, which leads us to the on-site product team. So literally, there'll be people from studio who are on the product team, and their job is to constantly figure out what it is, what's next, what will make the software stronger, what else do you need that we maybe haven't addressed. And as Julia said, things have been changing, or things do change on a regular basis. We always want to stay on top of that. So there'll be people there that if you have new ideas, we want to hear them.
That helps. I think that helps all of us, right? Like what if somebody has this amazing idea, right? Like about design tools, about colors. It's great to discuss those.
Well, and the evolution of studio comes from that. It comes from listening.
Yes. That's a good life skill.
Yeah, it is a good life skill. Well, I always say, it's in one of my books that says God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth, so we should listen twice as much as we speak.
Oh, that's really good. I have to remember that.
Yeah.
I had a client tell me last week, I wrote it down, it stuck with me. He said, if you show, people show up for you when you show up for them.
I like that.
It's like, so I just thought, I was like, oh, that's such a great way of phrasing it, and such a great segue into power of the community.
Exactly.
Power of the community. And I think, Keith, you're the greatest at this, right? In terms of
The greatest at it, but I've been doing it a long time between the other organizations that I run. The power of community is powerful because it brings together like-minded people in a situation that you typically wouldn't be in together. And, I have this saying that fear is a weakness and vulnerability is a strength. And when you make yourself vulnerable to listening to other ideas and other people and what they're doing, you just expand your knowledge and your growth. And that's what these conferences are really meant to be. It's really about you. We're bringing you great topic, great workshops, great speakers, great keynotes. But the power and what you're going to get out of it is how much you engage. And it means who you talk to at a meal, or if you're riding a bus from a cocktail party to dinner, who is it you're sitting next to? And I'm just going to give you an example without mentioning any names, but years ago, I was working with an architect who had a very major presentation at the University of Cincinnati, and really wanted the job, and was exhausted after the presentation, got on the plane, connecting through Chicago or something, and they land back in Los Angeles, and the guy next to him says, I got to tell you, you did a fantastic job today. And he had no recognition of the person who was in the room when he did the presentation. And he said, I feel guilty saying this, that I didn't do that. I had the ability for 4 hours to sit next to somebody and sell my services. And so it's like, if you're engaged and and you're aware of the people around you and what they do, the more you're going to learn from them. And, and the lesson there was, you may not always like what your seatmate looks like, but they could be a pretty powerful person for you in your career. And so we really believe in this. We believe that we can teach you so much, but your learning comes from everybody around you. It comes from the person that you're eating dinner with or breaking bread with. It comes from the person you're sitting next to in a group discussion. And it just comes from standing in line somewhere and talking to somebody. So we're asking you to really come to this with an open mind and ability to really engage. And we guarantee you'll get a lot out of it. For 20 years, I've been doing both the Design Leadership Summit and Leaders of Design. And I have seen the strength of our members and the growth in their business, not because of what we built, but because of the community that they're part of and how they support each other.
Yeah.
And I think you'll get great feedback as well as great knowledge from this conference.
I think asking questions, right, to the firms that are your size, larger or even smaller, there are, like, we have some sole proprietors who are amazing, right? Their processes are so great because they're actually they're responsible for such a large money flow. I think in anything like that, as long as you're asking questions, there's so much to learn. Somebody did ask about the Genius Bar. Yes, the Genius Bar is only available at the user conference. So it really is, I would say, the first of its kind. The user conference is the first of its kind to bring product and idea and thought ideas. Keith, you're better at this than I am, together with the users, to be able for the users to talk to, I would say, an actual person, right, instead of just through support, and bring their ideas and their thoughts to the table. So but yes, only at the conference.
Yeah, this is where we'll have that. And then, you know, we're building the agenda out right now, but we've got our keynote with Nate Berkus, which we're very excited about. We've got a panel with Suzanne Kassler from Atlanta, with Jesse from Krabbit, as well as I believe one of the partners at Phillips Jeffries will be there. We're trying to put together a panel that gives you all the stakeholders. So from designer to vendor, even clients, where you can learn what their sort of, you know, the goods and the bads of what the practice looks like, and how they, you know, overcome certain hurdles, and just how much studio means to their businesses. So there's going to be great speakers and people from who you're really going to learn from. I think that the key to all of this, though, and we put it here, is just because we're listening, we always want to hear from you. And with hearing from you, it allows us to expand what studio can be. So what it looks like today is definitely not what it's going to look like tomorrow. And we're not saying we're making major changes, but we're always looking to make it more efficient, as I've said.
Yeah. And to grow as technology grows, right? I mean, that goes back to the Apple example, right? Like AI is here, it's not going away. The technology improvements in the world will continue to grow. We need to be able to keep up with those as well. Somebody was asking specifically about design tools. So there's a lot of, if you go to the Learning Hub and type in design tools, you'll get a lot of really great pre-recorded webinars on design tools. I don't know if Anthony is still hosting them in terms of live. We did talk about them a little bit earlier too, in terms of workflow, right? Like, how do you incorporate design tools into your workflow? How do we see it incorporated at other offices?
And as we say, we're going to take a deep dive at the conference. We're going to, it's going to be it's a learning experience where it's a workshop to hear how other people are using it and to really figure out and get your knowledge up so that you can use all these tools that are available to you.
Yes, and the same really with Studio Pay, right? Like, if you have any questions directly on the new dashboard, if you've already upgraded, or if you haven't upgraded, right? Obviously a great time to do it, and a great time to talk to somebody directly within Studio to say, can you help me? Right, here's where I'm stuck, as an example, and then getting a tutorial of that dashboard live in person. I think it can make a world of difference.
Let me just expand a little bit on the community as well, because I remember a story not that long ago where I was at one of our conferences, And one designer was talking to another and they said, wow, we just got a job in your city. Unfortunately, though, one, we don't really have a lot of resources on, subs and, who the best upholstery maker is, or, who the best drapery hanger is. And the other designer was like, I will give you all those resources. You're doing this project. And in fact, if you're out of town and you're coming in and you need my office for anything, it was just really heartwarming to hear how they were willing to help each other because that one designer was doing their first project in a city that they knew very well. And those are the types of things that we hear all the time and that you can learn from and grow from.
Yeah, and receivers, right? That's always like a big question. Who's a good receiver versus who's a
I think that's your favorite question.
Yeah, well, receiving warehousing as a business concept is genius and needs to be discussed and explored thoroughly. But there are good receivers and bad receivers, right? And some of them are tech savvy and some of them aren't. And we just see that question, I would say, like a lot in any types of events like this. Like, who do you use in Miami? Who do you use in Miami? Who do you not use?
Exactly.
I'm super excited about the sun, but that's because I'm not on the West Coast.
Yeah, there you go.
So great time of year.
So just to jump into what we hope you'll experience with us is we have planned some great dinners. The first one, as you get there, will be a reception at the hotel with dinner there. We figured people are traveling. All the sessions will be at the Lowe's Hotel in Miami Beach, and then the workshops as well. And then the second night, we're going off the site to sort of a beach club where we're looking into a really amazing evening experience for you. There's a cocktail reception on the first day, and then all the other meals are breakfast and lunch are served at the hotel. It's a great hotel, great location, and so we're super excited about just all of the other pieces that you're going to get from it, not just the workshops itself, but really from the people we're bringing to you, the speeches you're going to be hearing, and just having some fun. And it's really important to us that you enjoy yourself while you're learning.
During tax season, may I add?
Sort of, right? Early tax season.
Well, early tax season. I think that the sign up is in the chat. Yes, the sign up is in the chat. So if you go to the chat, this is obviously not a hyperlink. So if you go to the chat, you could sign up. You could see all the breakout sessions. Please let us know if you have questions. You could always email me with questions. You could email Keith. You could email support@studio if you're looking for more information about the breakouts. You could register for the sessions that you're looking for, but it will be one of those experiences where there's a lot of learning, followed by some really great networking and dinners, like you mentioned, but there'll be a lot of learning opportunities for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah.
We're sort of a little bit early on wrapping up, but I think we should, I know there aren't a few more questions here, but if anybody has questions, please drop them in, and we're happy to answer them. If you don't have any more questions, Julie, anything else we want to bring to them?
No, I think you mentioned that registration does close soon, right? We do the hotel is closing, I think, in the next couple. I don't want to commit to a date.
And to the 3rd or something of that for the hotel of January. For most people, it's important also. I mean, you may want it for the tax write-off for the year to get this expense in before January 1st.
So put it on the Amex.
Yeah, exactly. Someone just asked about the charges or the review the changes. I'm not sure what they mean by changes.
So I mean, I would take that question just to say we're at the conference, so we'll be talking about, I think, all of the software improvements that really have been like the big highlights that have been occurring over the last year. I know there were a few questions about time billing specifically, and so time billing, for those of you who've been in studio now for over a year, right? The time billing module did get a refresh in 2023. I think it'll continue to get refreshes moving forward. Somebody asked about an integration into Harvest. I really think that the product team, and would be a great time to obviously talk to them if you go, is to continue to work on the studio time billing features so that you don't have to be in two softwares, so that you wouldn't have to be in a Harvest and a Studio, that you would be getting all of your data out of Studio Designer. So that was the thought that went into the upgrades in the time billing module for 2024. Yes, a lot of changes in items. Yes, we talked, I think, a little bit about those. So when you're in your item screen currently, you should be getting those pop-ups that will tell you where to find certain key changes. So just continue to look for those, and it's like the Apple update. We have to continue to learn and to grow. Somebody's asking about the flat fee structure. I actually think I would really recommend Learning Hub for sure. And then also if you're looking for even more information, that's it would be a great time to go to the conference, ask the questions specific to that even particular product team, or dive into that session to understand not only how to use it, but how other firms are using it. The flat fee feature is very similar to, I would say, Harvest too, in terms of flat fee feature. That was one of the thoughts behind it. Yeah, lots of live demos on, I mean, I know Anthony's does live demo. I just had a live demo an hour, 30 minutes ago. So lots of live demos to sign up for. Make sure that when you're on your home screen, you go to the middle bottom, and it actually says, sign up for all of the live demos. As well. So just a couple more questions about new items. So not only are and Keith, correct me if I'm wrong, but not only are there new updates this year, I mean there will continue to be,
yes, for sure,
updates next year and the year after, and we are here to really, I don't think that's going to go away.
no, not at all.
Yeah. So as the world changes, we're evolving with it.
Definitely. As we've said throughout this whole thing, we're listening. We hear you, we know what you need, what you want, and within a development schedule, we make it happen. But we're always looking at changes, and not change for change's sake, but change for really building efficiency.
Always.
Yeah.
And that's our workflow, right? And that's like, how do you utilize Studio in your workflow?
Okay.
Oh, good. I'm glad somebody's just saying that they like the flat fee structure. Yes, it was a good add-on. I mean, that was an add-on that I think started early 2024 too. So I'm sure the product team would love to hear that feedback. So that's great.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's one of those things where once we get enough sort of concentrated requests for something, we put it on the development side.
Yeah.
Well, so we want to remind you again, there's 50 slots left, and we'd love for you to sign up. So if you haven't already, the link is in the chat, and just we're looking forward for you to join us.
And meet the team too, right? Meet everyone
exactly.
who'll be involved, and meet others in the industry.
And be in Miami in February. What's better than that?
Nothing. Okay, well, it's nice to see you.
Yeah, nice seeing you too. It's always
Happy
great.
holidays.
All right. Happy holidays, everybody.
Thank you.
Wishing you all a happy and healthy new year. And
Take care.
Okay.
Bye.